I'm gluten-free Gigi, and I'm living gluten, dairy, soy, and nut-free. I understand how difficult it can be to enjoy the foods you love on a special diet. That's why I'm making these videos, to show you how simple and affordable, healthy, allergy-free living can be. Come join me in the kitchen. Today we're making an autumn apple cake. I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees and I have a 9 by 13 by 2 inch deep baking pan sprayed lightly with cooking spray. To get started, we'll mix our dry ingredients first. I have 1 cup of white rice flour, 1/2 cup of sweet sorghum flour. I have a 1/2 cup of millet flour. Millet and sorghum have a lot of protein, so there are some health benefits even though this is a cake. I have 1/4 cup each of potato starch. And the starches you have to work to get out of the dish and tend to absorb the moisture from the air. And I have a 1/4 cup of cornstarch. If you can't eat corn or potato, you can always use equivalent amounts of tapioca flour. It's a starch. And I'll add in a 1/2 cup of white sugar and a 1/2 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar. I'm going to put 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and that's our leavening agent. That'll make our cake rise. We want a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. It's also a leavening agent with a little different action. We need both of those. We want a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt. And then we want 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. Alright, so we'll take our whisk, mix all our dry ingredients, and make sure you take enough time to get all these lumps out so your batter will be smooth, especially with the brown sugar. And on the last few lumps for the brown sugar, just run your spoon, the back of your spoon through it. You can go through the ingredients and you can see those. And just get all those out. And once you've done that, it's time to add our liquid ingredients. I have a 1/4 cup of light oil. You can use anything you like. Canola oil works, sunflower oil, vegetable oil. I have 3/4 of a cup of unsweetened natural applesauce. And this is a vegan recipe. I have the egg replacer already mixed. This is Energy egg replacer powder. And I have the equivalent to 3 eggs. And you mix that with warm water and then whisk it and let that sit for just a minute so it gets thick. You can use a chia egg replacer there or flax if you like. Then I will use a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And stir these together. And you want to mix this just until the dry ingredients are completely blended in with the liquid. And the last thing we're going to add will be 3 cups of cubed apples. When I prepare my apples, I use large apples. I'm using Red Delicious apples today. Rum apples are another great variety for cooking. I recommend you use what is in season. Autumn is apple season, but different varieties are in season at different times. So right now, where we are in Georgia, the Red Delicious apples are local and in season. So that's what I'm using. And when I cube my apples, I peel them and at the top and bottom, and then I take the rest of the peel off. 1 large apple is about a cup if you cube it. So I went with 3 here for 3 cups. And that's about as many. You can use less, but don't use more, because you see the apple to batter ratio almost looks equal when you get those in here. So just stir those around until they're blended, and then we'll go to our baking pan. This is a thick batter. We'll put this right in the middle, and then we'll use the back of our spoon to spread it. sure you get it even in the pan. Now these apples will add moisture to your cake, and that's what the purpose of the applesauce is as well. Remember, we only used 1/4 cup of oil, which is not a lot for an entire cake. We went in with 3/4 cup of applesauce, and that is a great fat replacer. And these apple cubes will add moisture to our cake as well. So you won't miss all that fat, and you'll still get to have your gluten-free cake. Now we're going to prepare frosting for this, but let's put this in the oven first. 350, 35 to 40 minutes. We'll come back and check on it. And while the cake bakes, we'll get started on our frosting. While our cake is baking, we'll make the frosting. I'm putting 2 tablespoons of Earth Balance soy-free buttery spread into our saucepan over medium heat, and I'll add 1/2 cup of light brown sugar and 1/4 cup of rice milk. You can also use coconut milk here. It'll be just fine. We want to stir this over medium heat until the sugar dissolves, and just stir occasionally. You don't have to stir the entire time. We'll let the mixture come to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we want to boil it for about 2 minutes. And you probably want to set a timer on that because we want to get it to a certain temperature so that we can add the remaining ingredients. I've stopped stirring. Our mixture is coming to a boil. We want it to come to a full boil with bubbles all the way across the surface of the liquid. And we won't stir for 2 minutes. This will allow the sugar to thicken, and it'll recrystallize, and it'll be almost like a caramel before we add it to our confectioner's sugar. Our frosting ingredients have been boiling for about 2 minutes. You can see we've got bubbles all over. Take it off the heat completely. And at this point, we want to put about a teaspoon of vanilla extract. You'll get a little bubble from that. It's just the alcohol coming right off the vanilla with that heat. And so we'll give this a quick stir. You need to let this sit for 5 minutes so it can come down in temperature just a little bit, and then we'll finish off our frosting, and it'll be time to take out our cake. It's been 30 minutes and it's time to take out our cake. And it looks fantastic. Reminds you of a really full-fat, old-fashioned German dessert. Looks great. We're not having full fat. We're going to let this cool for just a few more minutes while our frosting cools. We'll cut this into slices, finish our frosting, and pour it over our hot cake. It'll be fantastic. So we've had our cake out of the oven for about 5 minutes. I'll just use a butter knife and cut the length of the cake. So you have 3 long sections. And then you can make your squares however you like. I like this size. These a little smaller on the end. So we'll set this aside. We'll take our frosting that we took off the heat and added our vanilla to. I have 2 cups of confectioner's sugar, powdered sugar, in this bowl, and I want to pour our liquid mixture for our frosting right over that. And then we'll add a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and we'll add a 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger. I just want to whisk these together. And just whisk this until all the powdered sugar lumps are out. In a couple minutes. I want it to be nice and smooth. When you get all the lumps out, we'll pour this right over the cake, and where we cut the cake, we'll have this frosting going down in there. It'll be very moist. It'll be delicious. And you'll need to let the cake cool for about half an hour. And the frosting will form a nice sugary glaze over the top. Alright. Let's bring our cake over. And just work quickly. The frosting will set up quickly. Sugars will recrystallize. So when you get all this out, come in with our spatula and spread this over the top. And the crumbs are okay. This will form a nice shiny topping. Now let this cool for half an hour and we'll come back and we'll be ready to serve it up. If you put your glaze on the cake while the cake is hot and you've made these cuts in the cake, the glaze melts when it gets on the hot cake and it goes down in the cracks and it makes it super moist and super delicious. You get a little frosting every bite. So our cake's been cooling for, well, almost 30 minutes. Not quite, but I can't wait. The center is my favorite. And I know you're not supposed to, but I'm going to because I made it. So I'm taking the center piece out. It's still pretty hot. And I better put 2 on my plate. I may find somebody to share with. So I hope you love my autumn apple cake.